Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lost in Possession Football Podcast. Three mates, three different teams, three very different opinions. This week, we've got another big show. It's all about Champions League. It's all about the top four. And it is all about Europe's premier competition. So we will be doing, for the bulk of this show, we will be doing a combined Spurs and Arsenal 11 with, of course, the big crunch fixture coming up this Thursday between Spurs and Arsenal for the top four battle. But first and foremost, what we want to discuss is obviously today there's pretty much been breaking news about the new Champions League format moving forward. So it's going to come into effect from the 2024/2025 season. But the whole Champions League format is completely shifting. It's going to be a league format initially. There'll be 36 teams, not 32. And there's a few other bits we're going to go through and reveal for you today. So let's get started. Reece, we'll come to you first. Obviously, a big battle this week for your club. I know we've given our predictions already. But with this new Champions League format, it's a huge, huge announcement. How do you see it benefiting potentially your own club, Arsenal?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously completely irrelevant for Thursday because it's not going to come into action for a while yet. But it's a good idea. It makes sense because it gives teams more of a chance and eases that pressure. But I just don't get where you just don't draw. Where do you draw the line? You know, an extra position on a team, depending on how a country does perform in a Champions League. It's just appeasing to these Super League teams again and again and again. They're going to get 6. Newcastle are eventually going to start pushing up the league and potentially another couple of teams. They'll push for 7. They'll push for 6. They'll push for 7. They'll push for 8. It's getting ridiculous. The idea, I get the idea, but it's only to appease these big teams, and Arsenal are one of them. As much as I'd like to see them in the tournament, you know, you've got to draw the line somewhere.
Jamie, where do you stand initially on it? Obviously, we'll get into more details about the exact format, but initially, what's your thoughts?
It's just more greed, really. It's more games they want, more money, and if they're putting in the top leagues into it, all they're doing is, like Ray said, appeasing the big teams, the ones who are part of the Super League, which unfortunately all 3 of our clubs were involved in that. It's just not something I particularly want. I don't see the need for it. It's going to put strain on other competitions like the League Cup and maybe even the FA Cup. It's just, I'm anti it, but then I'm a City fan. I boo Champions League songs. I don't like UEFA, and UEFA are proving why we don't like them. It's just another idea for more money. That's the only thing I can see about it.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And I think that the one maybe slight positive is that with little things, you know, I was very much in the opinion of if it's not, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So even little things like this season, you know, the changing of the away goals rule, I was actually, you know, quite adamantly against. However, you know, the City Madrid semi kind of just squashed that. That proved why we shouldn't have the away goals rule, because that was one of the best games, the best 2-legged ties in you know, probably the history of the competition. So I think that's maybe one good positive of where actually maybe a little bit of change can benefit overall the competition. But just to get into some of the finer details, so we've said it's going to be 36 teams, not 32. It will be a league format. So each team, from my understanding, will play 8 games. So obviously two more than the previous 6. So there will be potential, you know, congestion issues with fixtures potentially. I guess Reece touched on it earlier, but maybe it will end up just moving things. You know, fixtures. Sorry, the start of the Champions League will be earlier in the season. With the top 8, so from my understanding, the top 8 teams in that league, they'll be the ones who qualify automatically for knockouts. Wow, Aston Villa breaking news: Aston Villa, within 3 minutes, have just scored against Liverpool. Jamie, live reaction. What's your thoughts?
Oh, it's so bad for Liverpool. I'm probably sure Klopp has already got his arguments and they're not going to play in the right way.
Did Gerrard celebrate or not?
I hope so.
Well, look, we're not a breaking news channel, but that's a one-off special. But look, so just going back to that, so 8 teams will qualify initially from the league, and then the remaining knockout places will be determined by further playoffs. So, Reece, even more fixtures. Is there any upside, in your opinion, to that in terms of fixtures?
I mean, look, more fixtures, but again, it's just going to be the same old thing time and time again. Oh, we're going to need a winter break. Well, you can't have one because you've got fixtures to play. Oh, in that case, then we're going to need a longer summer. Okay, then, but don't go abroad and make yourself tired. Come back in 2 days before the tournament starts or the league starts. It's the idea of increasing competition, I understand, but it doesn't increase competition. It makes things less competitive because you can put less effort into your Premier League campaign. The League Cup looks like it's going to be on its dying days. You know, some countries have removed their version of it, Spain, for example. And it's just, where do you go? It's, you know, you want competition. You had to go at the Super League because it wasn't about competition, but then you're giving them teams extra positions, extra places, sorry, in another competition. So it's all just getting stupid. Like, you just know they're going to push the rules even further, and it's as simple as that. And
I guess we said a few weeks ago, I think, on our sort of FA Cup episode, that is the monopoly of the top 6 constantly winning the FA Cup. Is that ever going to end? Maybe this could be the start of that in both the League Cup and FA Cup. Maybe this now, because the bigger teams are going to be so distracted with Champions League fixtures or Europa, whatever it is, maybe we'll see that monopoly break up.
Yeah, but those competitions aren't going to matter. When
I think the only way that happens is if anyone in Europe doesn't play the League Cup. That's the only way that will happen. Even if they do, they still will. Sort of, you know, it's not going to change. It's not going to change who wins the competitions, in my opinion, too much, because teams are going to win 6 out of the first 8 and be already through, and then can rest players in the Champions League and play them in the League Cup. It's just squad rotation. That's the only difference, I think. And then you don't get games like we've got on Thursday that mean something, with Spurs versus Arsenal.
Yeah, I think that arguably that would just then translate, you know, a position down in the leagues. You'd still have that game to play for, but it might be, you know, Man United and West Ham instead of Spurs and Arsenal in this case. So I don't think we'd lose that as such.
I think it brings in less quality, though. That's the problem. Obviously, the Champions League's meant to be the best of the best. So it's just bringing in more and more, I don't know, like, not mediocre teams, but it's just bringing, I just think it's less quality. You've got to be in the top ones to do that. So, I'm really against it. But
I mean, I flip. Liverpool have equalised. There you go. So that lasted long. On that note, obviously, our kind of initial reaction is fairly negative. To put a positive spin on it, so obviously you'll have clubs maybe like, you know, as I said, Spurs, Arsenal, maybe West Ham, and obviously Newcastle now with their new owners, maybe licking their lips, because this is now a huge opportunity for those clubs in that kind of mix to have a genuine chance of making the Champions League. You know, West Ham didn't quite make the cut. For them, you got to think now Moyes is going to be sitting there going, we've got a real chance here. And
absolutely.
On your point, Jamie, about the weaker teams, I would actually make the argument that, you know, I'm trying to think of an example with this season, but let's say it's Chelsea, Arsenal in 3rd and 4th, and Spurs come 5th, right? Obviously, they're not going to get in Champions League, but if that's a year down the line or in the future, I would still argue that Spurs being in the Champions League in the 5th spot is better for the overall competition in terms of quality, in terms of competition and all the rest of it, than, let's say, with no disrespect, maybe a Zenit St. Petersburg, or whoever's maybe second in one of those kind of mid-tier leagues. So overall, actually, the quality is better because now, Real Madrid versus Zenit is now Real Madrid versus Spurs, which has a bit more appeal. What's your thoughts on that?
I just think it's more going to turn into you might as well go and do the Super League then, kind of thing, if that's what you want. The whole point of the Champions League is to get the top teams in each divisions into it. Whereas I get what you're saying, Spurs probably are better than Zenit and Petersburg, but they got there by winning their league. Spurs got there by coming fifth now. It's just, it doesn't seem worth the merit. The whole point is called Champions League, by the way. Champions.
True.
It's already got 4 teams. You can come fourth and get in it. It's not even the champions fully in it.
Just to jump in there. Sorry, you say about the whole, nobody wants to see Zenit versus Real Madrid, or nobody cares about, Malmo versus Juventus. But you're denying these clubs extra chance to earn money, to improve and become competitive. If you look at when it was called the European Cup, the Malmos, the Grasshoppers, Dynamo Kievs, they were doing well in these competitions. They were having a fair share. And now that the Premier League has all this money, they're not getting their fair share, so they can't improve their teams. They're missing out. They're having to sell their best players to these teams. So there we go. We're Americanizing the game even more, and eventually we're going to start doing draft picks in the summer, and that's how it is.
Please no. Imagine that.
Left FPL only.
yeah. Imagine the scenes, and just to kind of wrap that section up, I think one final positive is there was previous discussions about some of those extra places going to a wild card scenario where they're literally chosen on a team basis. I think that would have caused, again, a lot of controversy. And I think it is noteworthy that that's slightly changed to the success of a country, which I do think in the grand scheme slightly improves that model. But yeah, on that note, obviously on that, let us know your thoughts on it in the comments. I know reaction's been quite bad, but we move swiftly on to the big game and the big combined 11 of the week. So Spurs v Arsenal, we've said it enough already. Big crunch time Thursday, could be pivotal in the top 4. Who gets Champions League? So what we've done, we've all 3 of us have picked out our own combined 11, which is of all the current Arsenal and Spurs players at the moment. Injuries out not a factor. So we'll go through the teams. So let's start, of course, with the resident Arsenal fan. Reece, who's the goalkeeper you've gone for?
Yep, no worries. So just to make things clear, as I said to you guys before we started, this is probably the only combined 11 I thought there is a mixture of quality in one position, and then the choice is very, very low quality. You have to go for the least worst one. In terms of goalkeeper, I actually went with Aaron Ramsdale. That's not biased in any way. It's sort of backing up my point that him and Lloris are very erratic keepers that seem to show a very erratic behaviour, that seem to concede silly goals and make silly mistakes. I would argue that Ramsdale, although he's been good this season, has not been world class like everyone seems to be making him out to be. And I've put him in because I think he's had a better season than Lloris.
Yep, I'm going to jump in and say the exact same. Ramsdale is my choice. I think just recent form is what's made him better. Obviously, if you go by career, look, Ramsdale isn't even close. But for now, if I'm picking the team now, I'd pick Ramsdale.
So our first disagreement already. So Ramsdale was obviously a close second. For me, I actually went for Lloris. I think his pedigree, his experience, all the rest of it. In a big game, I still would trust Lloris over Ramsdale. I'd argue Ramsdale's been good, for maybe 6 months. Lloris has been good for probably 6 years. So if it's a big game, crunch tie, I'd personally prefer Lloris. But two is greater than one, as we know. So for our joint team, Ramsdale, again, it's straight in there. Let's move on to the right back position. Who are you guys picking?
Well, what Reece was saying, where there's a lack of quality in certain positions, I didn't want to pick a right back. I thought that I looked at it and went, I don't want to pick either of you. I don't really rate them both. I was looking at I think it's between Cedric and Emerson Royale, and I've gone with Emerson Royale, and I think he's just less bad. It's kind of my go-to.
Reece, any disagreements?
Yeah, I went with Cedric, only due to the fact that Tomiyasu hasn't played enough due to injury, but he's been consistently good. Cedric, I think, has actually gone under the radar, and I think he's actually been quite an exceptional player for us this season. I think his delivery, his crossing, I think his defending has been very, very good, and I think he's been a real asset to Arteta.
So we've all gone for someone different. So I got a little bit creative here, and based on the lack of quality of choices between sort of Suarez, Tomiyasu, and Emerson, I went with Matt Doherty. So I'd play him obviously more as a wing back. He's been playing predominantly on the left for Spurs. He's been bombing down that wing. A few assists and goals in the last few games that he's played. But for me, he's that classic Conte wing back. It doesn't matter what side you put him on. He'll deliver, he'll get down the wings, and he'll create chances. So for me, I'd put him in a bit of a makeshift right back position and just switch the sides.
God, I don't know if I agree with that. I'd rather go Cedric over Doherty. He was good for Wolves, and it's gone downhill for him ever since. I think he's probably doing better than he was this season, but
what's Suarez done? I don't think Suarez isn't a wing back at all. Cedric Suarez.
But he's been very good actually. If you watch him play, he's been very consistent. You know, he's a very, very consistent player. He doesn't make many mistakes. You know, I think his crossing's decent. I think it could be better. He's not like a modern day back or wing back or whatever you call him, but you want somebody who's gonna give you a minimum 6 out of 10 every week. He's the kind of player you want.
Fair enough.
Well, I think Jordan, you're picking a left back to go right back. I think you're trying to cheat the system here.
Some of the best players, some of the best wing backs can play both. Azpilicueta, Cancelo, the list goes on.
But he doesn't.
I'll still take him over Emerson.
Oh, I'm saying they're all useless, to be perfectly honest. So.
Well, it's a tough one for the joint team, but I guess Reece, you're an Arsenal fan. You've probably seen a bit more hours of Suarez playing than we've seen of our picks. So maybe we'll concede that one. We'll let you have Suarez for the joint team. Now, the centre-back pairings. I'll kick us off. I've gone for an all-English combination. I've gone for Ben White. A lot of critics at the start of the season when Arsenal were in bad form. Obviously, that comes with the pressure of being one English and two, 50 mil. But I think he has slowly come into his own. He has improved. Still, I think gone a little bit under the radar. But for me, out of the centre-back choices across the two teams, I'd still just about pick White. And obviously, I know it's not FIFA, but I like to have a bit of that English chemistry, old school English centre-backs. So I've gone for the boy, Eric Dyer. It was close for me. I'm guessing you guys might have said, Gabriel, maybe. But for me, Eric Dyer's, under Conte, he looks so much better. He stepped into that centre-back role very well. And that was evidence the other day, stopping Liverpool. Not many teams can do that. So for me, the English guys, centre-backs, White and Dyer.
I agreed with one of your picks, George. White. I picked White. I think he's the best. Probably, he's the best Arsenal centre back for me. And then for my other one, I've gone Romeo. I think he's been Spurs' best defender this season. I'd have him over Dyer any day. I think he's one of the defenders that is just nasty, wants to defend. It's sort of like what Diaz kind of did when he come in. He's like, defending is my job. I don't care about anything else. And then you've also got this side where I think someone missed again. I don't know if it was the Liverpool game or some other game, and he just laughed in their face. I think it was United actually. It's that nasty sort of side. I've gone with Romeo. Reece?
Yeah, I've gone exactly the same as you, Jamie. I think Ben White deserves to be there. The reason for that is because nobody talks about him, so he's obviously doing something right. And I went for Romero because I think he's an old school centre back. He's tough. He's not afraid to get stuck in. I was originally going to do Romero and Gabriel, but I thought about it and realised that they never actually play together on the pitch because one would be suspended, and then when he comes back, the other one would end up suspended. It's literally a yellow or red card waiting to happen with them two. So yeah, I've gone Romero and White.
Yeah, I think Gabriel, just on that point, I think he's been very good actually in the last few weeks. So he was very close to me for Dyer. Dyer's just been doing it a little bit longer, I think. But again, 2-1 for the centre backs. So White and who did we say? White and Romero locked in for the centre backs. So swiftly on to the left back position. Now, I think we might agree on this one. Jamie, kick us off.
Well, I thought this out of two choices, really. I think it's obviously I don't know what your picks are, but I thought it's out of Reguilon and Tierney. And I think I just prefer Tierney. I think Reguilon's got more quality on the ball, but I think as a defender, I think Tierney is a better player. So I've gone with him in my left back.
Reece?
I've gone Reguilon, just because I think that Tierney just hasn't played enough to justify being in this starting 11. He's a good player, don't get me wrong, but I think Reguilon has continued to get better every single week. And Nuno Tavares and Ben Davis just aren't good enough. So, had to pick Reguilon.
No, agreed on that one. So I'll tip the balance for the joint team. Again, for me, it was a very close between the two you've mentioned. Reece, fair point on the minutes, but for me, I think Tierney's got a little bit more quality and potential. So I went with Tierney. So again, 2-1, Tierney makes the spot. So the back four is, I've got who the right back is already. Good start.
Ramsdale, Cedric, White, Romero, and then Tierney.
Cool. On that note, let's go to the fact I forget the center, the defense could tell you everything you need to know about the quality of that team. Moving on to the midfield, I think this is going to be where it gets a bit interesting. So obviously, me and Jamie have gone for a 4-3-3, so we'll only have three. Reece, I believe you've got 5 in your midfield.
Yes, 4-2-3.
Paul, do you want to kick us off then, I guess, with your CDMs?
Yeah, I've actually gone Højbjerg and Bentancur. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I think Bentancur has been exceptional since joining Spurs, and I think Højbjerg has improved as well. I think he's a proper defensive midfielder. You know, his job, he knows his job. Win the ball back, give it away. Give it away to his teammate. That's all he needs to do. I think he's been good. I don't know. I look at Arsenal's two sort of midfielders in that position, and Jack has been great, but I just think he wouldn't. I don't know. I just think that he's more inconsistent in his game. So that's who I've gone for.
Cool. Jamie, did you do one CDM? Is that 3 or not?
Technically two, I think, really. I've gone with Højbjerg as well, but I've gone with Partey in the midfield. I think he's a good player. I think he's probably just shown it a little bit more than Bentancur. Like he was considered, but I think that's the way I've kind of gone with my two sort of defensive midfielders as such.
So for me, for my formation, I only had sort of one CDM, two more attacking midfielders. But we all agree Højbjerg definitely made it for me. Close kind of second and third were obviously Xhaka and Partey as well. Xhaka for me, he has put in some good shifts this year, but for me, it's just that liability factor. You just know at any point he could put in a rash challenge. Højbjerg, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, bit of an old school CDM. He's the kind of guy you just wouldn't want to play against. Not afraid to put in a tackle. Positioning's good. Distribution's pretty good as well. So for me, Højbjerg. And then I guess, Reece, back to you on your attacking midfielders. Who else made the cut?
I'm actually torn on this one. The one I put more central, I was torn between Kuleveski and Ødegaard. I originally put Kuleveski down because I rated him at his time at Juventus. I thought he was a very good player, but I think I'd probably say he probably played more on the wing, so I'll put Ødegaard there. I think Ødegaard has been an unsung hero. I think his silkiness on the ball is actually very above, potentially could be world class. So I'll go Ødegaard.
Jamie, so who are your two remaining midfielders? Or wait, you've got one remaining.
My one, and that's agree with Reece, Ødegaard. He's the one I've put there as the sort of, he's the one who's allowed to go and create stuff, attack. Well, I've got two behind defending. So it's on you, George.
Yeah, so my remaining two midfielders was in fact Ødegaard. Both for the reasons you described. He's really stepped up in the last couple of months for Arsenal. Shots, assists, goals, silky on the ball. And he's starting to come into that player that everyone thought he would be, seemingly 10 years ago. He was the next big thing. Didn't quite make it, but it's good to see that he's finally getting up to speed and revitalising that sort of potential that he seemingly once had. And then for me, because our formations are a bit different, I had to pick a slightly less attacking midfielder, someone who can do a bit of both. So I went for Bukayo Saka. Again, you could argue he's a front three as well, but I just, for the purpose of this team, sat him a bit deeper. He's played wing back before. He can attack. He can defend. Phenomenal player and a bright young talent. So, is anyone left for any midfielders, or is that the whole midfield done now?
We've got one space we need to agree on.
Fine. So we've got Ødegaard, Højbjerg.
Ødegaard and Højbjerg. So then it's probably between. Well, you had Saka. I've got Partey, and Reece has got Bentancur. So it's more. I'll be honest with you, and it will obviously spoil probably the next position. As my right winger, I've got Saka there. So that's why Saka weren't a consideration for the centre midfield. So I've put him on the right. I don't know if Reece might have the same. If he does, then we can sort of probably say Saka's not the centre midfielder, and then we can decide from there.
I do indeed, yeah. I would put Partey there then in the centre midfield.
Cool. So Partey makes the third spot in the midfield. 2 CDMs, 1 attacking midfielder. So finally, the attackers, I guess, in our joint team, it's going to be 3. Who probably...
So we pick the right, so it's more...
Fine.
Who's the left then?
So
it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what you say on the right, George, but you can tell us anyway.
So I went for Son on the right. That'll make more sense when you hear my left. Well, I'll say it now. So obviously Kane up front. I can't imagine there's any disagreements. There's no hardcore Lacazette fans in here. Yeah.
Hater's doing well, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, to be fair, sorry. Big Eddie's turned up in the last few weeks. So maybe he's pushing Kane. But no, Kane in the centre for me, Son on the right. And the reason for that is I put Martinelli on the left. Phenomenal. Reece, you might disagree. I know we've all had our disagreements on Martinelli, but for me, he is so good. Quick, agile. He can shoot. He can cross, and he's so skillful as well. perfect example was a few weeks ago. I think when you played Liverpool, he was giving Trent a real problem. To do that to one of the so-called best wing backs in the world shows everything you need to know. So for me, Martinelli makes the cut.
While I agree with what you say about Martinelli, I think he's a top player, but he's not better than Son, and I don't think he's better than Saka. So that's why I didn't have him in my front three. I've gone Son on the left and Saka on the right with Kane up top. I think that's probably the strongest front three that you can get out of these.
Yeah, I don't need to dissect mine very much. I've gone the exact same as Jamie. Saka, Son, Kane. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
Son had to be his team. I get why you moved him over, but it was more for who you're having. Because you put Saka in the midfield, I get why you've kind of gone with that.
Yeah, I think
one player we did miss who probably deserves a bit of a mention is Smith Rowe.
Yeah, I was literally about to say that.
Yeah, I think he is a phenomenal player. I think he's just give him like 2 more years, and I think he'll probably be in this team. I rate him very highly, but just right now, I don't see it. Like he's not there yet.
Yeah, he's not better than those options that we've put there. So
yeah,
good job a team from 2 years ago. It'd have all just been a Spurs 11, to be honest. That would have been the starting 11 we've ever done. If it was last year, year before, probably year before that.
and one mention on the Spurs side who kind of got close for me that I didn't mention, Lucas Moura in the arguably his midfield, maybe as a front three. We've seen what he can do, obviously, on their big Champions League run. He's done a lot else in his career. What's your thoughts on Moura at the minute? Is he finished? Is he still? Can he still do it?
He doesn't play enough, but I think when I've seen him play, even in person, I think he's one of the best hitters and passers of a ball. I think he's a great dead ball player. I think he does work very, very hard. But I think there's a reason it didn't quite work out at PSG, and there's a reason he's probably not hit those heights at Spurs and been their best player. So there must be something there that's holding him back. I don't know what it is, but he is a good player. I just didn't think he was better than what we had put into that team.
No, that's fair enough.
Have to agree there with Reece. There's been numerous managers at Spurs, and he's not fully put himself in that front three where you've obviously got Son and Kane, and he should have cemented that third spot as the front three, and that should just be they build on whatever's behind. It's just not worked out for him. I think he's a decent player, but he doesn't play enough, and at the moment, I don't think he's better than Saka. So he didn't actually get considered in my team. I did forget about him, but I kind of quickly picked Saka, Son, and Kane, so I didn't really consider anyone else.
Fair enough. So I think, Jamie, you've probably got it in front of you. So let's just finalise with a joint 11.
So in goal, Ramsdale. Right back, Cedric. Centre backs, White and Romeo. Left back, Tierney. Then in the midfield three of Højbjerg, Partey and Odegaard. And then a front three of Son, Saka and Kane up top.
Not a bad side. Not a bad side in the end.
Yeah, not a bad side. I only didn't have one player from that, so I think I've picked quite well, having 10 out of the 11.
Got done in my formation, I think. But yeah, so that wraps us up, obviously, for this edition. I can imagine our players we've selected might cause a few debates. As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your arguments. We want to hear your reasons for the other players. But for now, that wraps us up. As you know, like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the bell notification. You know the drill.
Here we go.